What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Buckeye Film Breakdown. As always, I'm Jeremy. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. Glad to be here with you guys. If you're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, enjoy the first part of the show as a free preview. If you're tapped into our community through Substack, Buckeye-Film-Breakdown.com, enjoy the episode. Wanted to hop on here. Another day of spring ball. 2 more black stripes shed. And we've also got some really cool sound bites that we want to talk about from a couple of our transfers that just kind of hammer home some of the things we have talked about, culture, attitude, effort, that type of thing. Hop right into the black stripes. Defensive lineman John Walker, the UCF transfer, a guy who I think a lot of people remember was almost a Buckeye coming out of high school.
Yep.
Wanted to stay kind of toward home. Obviously, there's definitely a spot for this guy this year. Coming off of an injury, I think that was 2 years ago he got injured, or was it last year?
It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He's not Caden McDonald size-wise, but he's an athlete. He's a bigger body, and he's a proven commodity, something we talked about last time. We don't have proven depth guys and or contributors outside of Edric Houston and maybe Will Smith Jr. in the interior. So John Walker sheds the black stripe. What are your hopes for him this year?
Yeah, I loved the addition of John Walker out of the transfer portal back in January. We had an opening drive on him early in January when we first added him to the roster. Did a film breakdown on him, and the film is good. I mean, he's 6'4". 324, 325 pounds. You see him in person. He's a massive human being. Talked to a few guys on the roster, talked to a couple people in the Woody about the defensive line, and they mentioned his name as one of the first people that jumped out at you that can really stop the run. And so that is something that I fully expect him to do. Don't want to put the Caden McDonald label on him. That's the role that he needs to fit. But he needs to be a guy, along with James Smith, that comes in and is a run stuffer. That is the area of the game that the Buckeyes need to fill the most, because that is what Caden McDonald did. And so if John Walker can be that guy for us, and it sounds like through the spring so far, he has been able to be that guy. It's been very difficult for the Buckeyes to find success running on the interior. Now, I understand that the offensive line has been dealing with some injuries, but not necessarily on the interior where he's been going up against some of these guys. And so if he can fill that role, I think that would be great. So that's my hope. He's got immense talent. I mean, he can rush the passer. He can do so many things for his size. And just seeing him in person, I mean, he is massive. He is a huge guy. And so my hope for him is that he can just eat up 2 gaps, and that when we get into our penny front, that he can be that zero technique nose guard that is able to get knocked back on the center, and that can really keep Peyton Pierce, Riley Pettijohn, whoever that Mike linebacker is, that he can keep them free and allow them to just run. So that is my hope. I think that's what he was brought here to do, and I think he can do that. I think he's already proven that. That's why he's lost his black stripe already. And I just think he's having a really good spring, man. And it takes you a while, to acclimate yourself to bouncing from UCF. I know they're in the Big 12 now, but UCF is not Ohio State, and so it takes a little bit of time to get acclimated. But he's done his job, and I'm excited for him, and I think he could really do a lot of good things for the Buckeyes defensive line.
Yeah, him and James Smith, man, in the middle is honestly a pretty intimidating, and that's not to devalue Edric Houston, because Edric Houston does a lot of things really good. But I just feel like those 2 dudes are different body types. I think they fill a different role. Obviously, Edric came in as an end, as fronts changed, personnel changed, that type of thing. And his body changed. He slides down inside. He's just kind of that tweener. I think you'll see Edric have a lot of success, like in a rush man type package. I think that's where he can really make some noise. And depending on the team you're playing, I think Edric is going to be a benefit against some of your teams with like the smaller, quicker O lines. Whereas like your run heavy teams like the team up north, that's going to be where you see Smith and Walker do their thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think, Walker and Smith can be a great, like you said, intimidating group of guys on the interior. And Edric Houston is going to definitely be a part of that. And I think this interior defensive line, if we can get them to be consistent, I think they have the potential to be really freaking good. And the depth that they can have in that interior is just it will be really nice to have 4 or 5 guys that you can consistently look at and be like, okay, like these guys can play. And so they need to come through. But I think James Smith is a huge piece of that. And John Walker is obviously a huge piece of that. And if those are the 2 guys that you're going to be rolling with a ton, and throw Edric Houston in there as well, if you get them playing at their peak potential, it's one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten, if not the country.
Sure, absolutely. And you couple what I think we are starting to develop at the end in edge position. It sounds like Epi Sanatelli has been unblockable.
Yeah.
Kari Wilder with another year. Zion Grady. You've talked about what you saw out of Bo Atkinson making strides. Kenyatta Jackson. You quickly go from a position that has been ridiculed and deemed underachieving as a group to possibly being the strength of your defense now.
Yeah, and honestly, being at practice, that was one of the things that really caught my eye, was looking at the defensive line and looking at the physical makeup of that defensive line, and just just looking at them, not knowing if they're physically ready to play, but the physical development of each guy. You look at them and you're like, wow, like that guy looks like they could play right now. Like Dre Quinn looks like he could play right now.
That's a big boy.
And he's a massive individual.
That is a big boy.
I'm sitting there looking at him like, okay, like he's a lot bigger than I thought he was. Emmanuel Ruffin looks like he could play right now. Like these are guys that, they enrolled early for a reason. They just look good. They look like they could play right now. And I'm like thinking, like, man, like the depth that we have up front across the board is really freaking good. And those are just the young guys.
Yeah.
Bo Atkinson and Kenyatta Jackson, they are grown freaking men. Bo Atkinson, I didn't realize how big he is. Like he is huge. And, obviously Kenyatta, we talked about him just being, an alien. Like I can't believe how massive of an individual he is. But like the depth that we could have up front is something that really stood out to me. And so, like you said, it could be a big time strength for us this season if we get consistent play out of the guys that we need to get that consistent play out of.
And Kenyatta rocking 2 is a game changer. I don't know what it is, but it just looks, better. Before we talk about the other black stripe, you triggered a thought that I meant to ask you when we were talking practice stuff. What does Braxton Rimbert look like in person?
An alien. There's not really words to describe how he looks. That was one of the things, like a lot of the coaches, I think he was a former Buckeye player from like the 60s. I feel bad because I didn't ask his name, but he had like an old Letterman jacket on. You could tell like he was a proud Buckeye, and he had the roster in hand, and he just kept talking about Braxton Rimbert. And I felt like I disrespected him because I never asked him his name, but he seemed to be next to me everywhere I went. And I was just like, dang it. Like I left that place thinking I should ask who this guy was, but he kept talking about Braxton Rimbert. And he just could not believe how lanky of an individual this guy is. He almost looks out of place. Like when you look at somebody and you're just like, he's a football player. It's definitely a basketball kid who's a power forward, who is 6'7", and his dad said, you know what, maybe you should talk to the football coach about playing football. And the football coach has been recruiting him for so long. And then finally his senior year, you got him to come out. and he doesn't look like he's really been in the weight room. That's what Braxton Rembert looks like. But the physicality, the athleticism, it is just I totally see why they wanted this kid on this team, because in a year when he's got another year of development and you add 20 pounds of muscle to him, you have a positionless player. You have a guy who could play linebacker. He could be an edge. He can do so many different things. And he was just all over the place. He's still trying to figure some things out, the physicality of the game. But man, like, he is going to be a player. And it was fun to watch him. Like, he's just so tall and lanky. There was a linebacker for USC, and I cannot remember his name, but he was like 6'6", like 215 pounds, real lanky guy. I think he was a senior this past year, but that is exactly who he reminds me of. I cannot think of this guy's name, but that is exactly who Braxton Rembert reminds me of. And I think Braxton Rembert has a bright future, but man, he just looks out of this world. Like, I just could not believe he definitely has that basketball build out there, and he's going to be able to rush the passer. He's going to be able to play it, off the ball as a linebacker, but I think his future is going to be getting after the quarterback on the edge. There's no doubt about that, because some of the stuff that he's able to do, the way he can bend, there's some natural ability there that you can't coach. And it was fun. It was fun to see, because I forgot he was there. Like, you just kind of forget about him. He was one of the later guys in the process, and you look at him, it's like, oh my gosh, like, this guy is a freak of nature. So yeah, definitely I would consider him an alien. It's like Wemby out there.
I meant to ask you about him last week, because that's a dude who, intrigues me watching his tape. And obviously, most 6'7" guys play tight end.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of them do. I think the dude from USC you're thinking of, is that the Gentry guy, Eric Gentry?
It might have been. Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Transferred from Arizona State, I think.
Yeah.
So a well-timed black stripe removal, given the fact you just did a film room on this guy.
Yeah.
Mason Williams, tight end. Obviously, since you did the film room, I will let you just kind of talk about Mason Williams and what, this dude's going to mean.
Yeah, so I just did the film room, so that's a good reason to subscribe to Buckeye-Film-Breakdown.com. I think we do some good stuff here, and so if you want to check out that film room, go to Buckeye-Film-Breakdown.com. I think it's pretty good, if you ask me, but I think he's a player. I think Ohio University maximized a lot of his strengths. He does a really good job of leaking out of the backfield. He does a really good job of understanding angles and understanding the leverage that he needs to block certain defensive ends on different blocks. If he's trying to kick them out, if he's trying to reach them, those are just little tiny intangible things that are really like a guy who's really paying attention to the coaching points and the technique that's being taught to him. Like, those are things that you like to see. There's clips of him like mid-rep correcting his angle so that he can make sure that he's attacking the correct shoulder, because the defensive end attacked upfield, so he has to adjust. Like, those are things that you love seeing. And so you just see a guy who you can tell takes coaching. He's a very physical guy. He's not necessarily, on the film that I've seen, he's not necessarily the most technically sound, but he gets the job done. He reminds you of Will Kazmarek. Will Kazmarek wasn't always the most technically sound guy, but his motor, his toughness, his physicality would always make up for that. And so that is a lot of the same things you're getting with Mason Williams. I think Mason is a better receiver than Will Kazmarek was. I think Ohio could have utilized him more in the passing game. If you look at his best receiving game, it was against Bowling Green. He had 8 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown, and they just kept feeding him the ball. And I think he could have had like 15 catches that game. But he does a lot of good things. He's a pretty solid blocker. He's a very good receiver as well. I think this is a guy who is going to be that Nate Roberts role for us, that what Nate Roberts did last year. I think this is a guy who can be that true like flex tight end who goes in the backfield as a fullback and can be a really dual threat. Like I can actually run the ball. He was a running back in high school. Like he actually had like almost 2,000 yards rushing in one of his last seasons in high school. He can run the ball. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think he can do those things. He can obviously be a flex tight end as well, where he's lining up off the hip of the tackle. And he can line up and split out wide as well. I mean, he can really do it all. So when you look at the tight end room, you got Nate Roberts now, who's going to be like the guy.
The guy.
He's got to be the guy. You've got Hunter Welsing, who is going to be one of the next guys to lose his black stripe. And he's going to be that other receiving threat and a rotational piece. And then I think Mason Williams is going to be that grinder, dirty work blocker. And he's probably going to have like 20 catches on the season. And he's just going to be that just tough SOB week in and week out. And I think Bennett Christian is going to fall right in that mold as well. And so I'm looking at that tight end room. I think you've got a lot of what Arthur Smith wants in a tight end room. You've got 4 guys in that top group, and that's not counting Max LeBlanc, who's done some really good things this spring. Brody Lennon, who's done some really good things. I know he's kind of banged up right now. Even the new guy, Nick Lauder, Nick Lauder's down there making plays as a true freshman. So I think you've got everything you want in that tight end room. Again, it just comes down to consistency. But I think Mason Williams is going to be a very, very key piece to this offense because he's got all the tools to be very successful in an Arthur Smith offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously Arthur Smith loves tight ends. We all know that. But I had to crack a laugh today at a buddy of mine. We were talking ball, and he's a Steelers fan. And we were talking about wide receivers and that type of thing. And he's like, well, we might only score 10 points a game with Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. And I'm like, come on now. This is a little different animal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited to see what Mason Williams does. Obviously, we got a lot of good out of Will Kazmarek as far as that goes. Before we dive into, I have a follow-up question or topic I want to talk about on Black Stripes, but we will go ahead and take a pause here. So again, anybody, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, we really hope you enjoyed the first part of the show. If you liked what you heard, tap on in at Buckeye-Film-Breakdown. Find the subscription method and plan that works the best for you. And we look forward to, hopefully having you tap into the community.